My involvement with them lasted several years. I would try and get out of their view and try and get away from them, but every time I did, they found me. And it became so desperate that I started changing jobs. I changed apartments, cities, states, and even after all that, they found me.
As victims of Jeffrey Epstein continue healing from his actions, the Department of Justice is now saying that Epstein did not maintain a client list. On Monday, the DOJ also announced no more files relating to Epstein's case will be made public. An about-face from what was promised by Attorney General Pam Bondi earlier this year. But after a lengthy review of evidence, the Justice Department determined no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted, noting that much of the material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial. So the first question we're asking this morning, do you believe that the alleged client list of Jeffrey Epstein's actually doesn't exist? Do you believe that there is no list? Share with us your thoughts right now on social media, and let's welcome in our special guest. She's the co-owner and the host of Justice Served TV. She's also a high-profile trial attorney. Linda Kenny-Bodden is with us. Linda, good morning. Thanks for coming on the program.
Good morning, Julie. It's great to see you again.
Oh, likewise. Okay, so in terms of this first question we're posing, Linda, do you believe that there's no client list?
Well, I think this is a little bit of a bait and switch, Julie, because obviously somebody knew something. It was maintaining some type of list somewhere, because you don't have a Ghislaine Maxwell in jail in federal prison, Jeffrey Epstein's associate, unless there had been a finding of trafficking of women. So there is something somewhere, no matter what you call it. It may not be a list. It may not be a little black book, but there is something. Somebody was keeping track. So do I believe there's nothing? Absolutely not. And I think that if you're talking about the list, you're drawing attention away from the real issues, which is, did Jeffrey Epstein commit suicide or was he killed? And what are the things that are outstanding that the Justice Department is not telling us, has not revealed to anybody, including his brother, Mark Epstein? As you know, I just have to disclose, as you know, my husband, Dr. Michael Bodden, was present at the autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein for Mark Epstein. As you know, it's been all over the news, and his findings have been all over the news. So I just want to get that out there right out in the front.
Oh, and appreciate that, Linda. And we wanted to ask you about that. I know you're very transparent about that, and if you don't mind, would love to ask you about that, because many people still do not believe that he died by suicide. And I can remember seeing there was an excellent documentary done, and your husband's work was noted. And if I remember correctly, I remember seeing Dr. Cyril Wecht as well in that same documentary. I know that he was a dear friend and well-respected colleague of your husband's, and they agreed on this, that this was not a suicide. Would you tell us more? Tell us what exactly your husband's findings were in actually observing that autopsy. He was in the room, as I understand it, Linda, on behalf of family member Mark Epstein.
All right, so let's talk about that, but let's talk about that in terms of what hasn't been released. There were 3 fractures, right, of the hyoid bone and 2 bones on the side that are more consistent with a homicidal killing of somebody, as opposed to a partial hanging when somebody is seated down on the weight. But what's really important here, Julie, is when the Justice Department releases this video the other day, that video, what people have to understand, is not of Jeffrey Epstein's cell door. All right, there are no videos, the government says, and they've been asked for by the brother since he died, but there are no videos in that tier of that walkway of who had access there, because they were, quote, malfunctioning. There's also unnamed people, right? There's unnamed guards, guard number 1, guard number 2. The Justice Department will not reveal who else was on the tier, who else was moved out of the tier. Were there interviews of the other prisoners or inmates or detainees, depending depending on the status, in the Metropolitan Correction Center in New York City? Is there video of Epstein going to the infirmary? What was done? Did anyone have a handheld video camera? These are all questions that needed to be answered, that still need to be answered. And by focusing on the list, we don't focus on what the Justice Department didn't say to us, what they didn't reveal, and what they said they are not going to reveal to anyone, including a family member. Now, I've handled a lot of detainee suicides in jail. My last one, obviously, as you know, was a prisoner, Aaron Hernandez, who did kill himself. And we knew what we had. We knew what we had in terms of whether guards looked into windows, looked into the keyhole, looked into the cameras. We know in every single case what there should be and what is usually released to the family. Here, it's not. It's simply not. And how does everything malfunction? How does everybody fall asleep? How does everybody not do checks on Jeffrey Epstein? It's mind-boggling, Julie. It's simply mind-boggling. And for the Justice Department to say, well, there's this key locking system, that's bait and switch again, too, because these were actually physical keys that could unlock at that time. So to say now you have a central locking system, again, is just misleading. And I think this is what's causing all of the issues here, that there is no transparency and there should be complete transparency.
Preach, my friend, preach. I love everything that you just said. You're right. That's the biggest problem, that it seems that so much of his death and the case investigation surrounding it has just been shrouded in way too much secrecy, and victims from years ago are still reeling, that there's no justice for them. Ghislaine Maxwell's case seems to be not enough for many people and just unsatisfying, to put it bluntly. With other cases you've had, Linda, and thank you for mentioning your client Aaron Hernandez's case, and others you've had, in your experience, when there is a jail suicide, are there some things that you've typically seen with all of them that may not have been present in this case with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, sure. You obviously have suicidal ideations. You've had a report done. You've seen a psychologist, psychiatrist to have the prison. Are you a risk of suicide? People are normally, like Aaron's case, he was actually hanging completely up. He had put soap on the floor so medical people couldn't get in to follow him. There's all sorts of things. You have the cameras of the actual jail cell, of the door to the jail cell, which you see. The family is told things right off the bat in these cases. You file a preservation motion and you request, and they're willing to talk to the family because, generally, they know, most of these cases know that unless they've done something really wrong, they have immunity. Here, there's no communication with Mark Epstein on the things that he's asked for. I actually spoke to him last night before I went on the air. It was one of the first times I had spoken to him. I've only have spoken to him one other time, but not about his brother. And we went through a lot of different things, and I asked him specifically these questions. Did you ask for the cameras for the infirmary? Yes. Did you ask for the video? Why was there attempts made to try to save him when he was clearly dead for many, many hours, according to what my husband had said on different shows that you can go and review. Why was this allegedly a partial hanging? Why was there no lividity where there should be lividity? These are things that they normally discuss with the families, and they're open about them. And the shrouding in secrecy and trying to pretend that this release of this video answers these questions does not do it, and it leads more to what people think is not just a conspiracy, but a cover-up.
Linda, this is such helpful insight you're sharing. Let's go back in time and take a listen back to what was said by the government about Jeffrey Epstein's death.
Epstein was found hanged in his locked cell within the prison's secure special housing unit. The New York City's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner determined that Epstein died by suicide. We determined that MCC New York staff failed to ensure Epstein was assigned a cellmate, as instructed by MCC New York's psychology department following an incident on July 23rd, where Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell with a cloth wrapped around his neck. Had Epstein's cell been searched as required, it would have revealed that Epstein had excess prison blankets, linens, and clothing in his cell.
Linda, we know that you're the legal expert in your household. Your husband's the medical expert, and you both have crossover, and I'm sure it's wonderful being able to talk to each other about these cases. And with your husband's findings, the way I understand it and the way I've heard the late, great Dr. Cyril Wecht explain it as well, is that the hyoid bone being fractured was a telltale sign in this of manual strangulation. Dr. Wecht believed, and it's my understanding your husband, Dr. Baden, believes this as well, that a sheet that we saw there in the photograph, or piece of clothing, whatever it was, would not fracture the hyoid bone. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, it's actually more than that. You're probably better off than some of the FBI people we've seen.
I got the layman's version.
There's also 2 bones on the side here, the thyroid cartilage. So there's 3 fractures there, and also with the ligature mark, the ligature that was used doesn't necessarily match the ligature mark on the neck. So there's all sorts of other things. So it's not just that. It's more, and there you see the alleged ligature. But here, remember, in the tier, there are 8 cells. In that specific tier, was supposed to have 2 people, so a maximum of 16 people. We know one of them didn't have a prisoner, and we know that Jeffrey Epstein's, his roommate got moved out, so there was a maximum of 14 in there. Who are these other people, okay? Release their names so they can be interviewed by the family of Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, if you find out what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, you're really giving some justice to those victims, because why was he killed? What was the reason he was killed? These questions that the victims want to know, and the answer to whether or not Jeffrey Epstein affirmatively committed suicide, killed himself by suicide, died by suicide, or whether he was murdered and this was a hit, will also help the victims know exactly who may have been involved in this whole ring of trafficking.
You're so right. Linda Kenny Baden, always a pleasure. You know how much I adore you and your wonderful husband.
I know,
Give him
Julie.
our very best.